So I came across this and I thought Denver Broncos fans would appreciate this. And I wanted to unpack as to why I think stuff like this happens. Um, but we see this, right? Every rookie quarterback with 4,000 plus total yards, 30 plus total touchdowns, and 10 plus wins in NFL history. Jaden Daniels, end of list. Which is pretty interesting because then when you keep going down, you could see Broncos rookie quarterback Bo Nix also qualified for this list with 4,207 total yards, 34 total touchdowns, and 10 wins. And it's just so fascinating when you think about in the modern era of NFL, unless you win in the playoffs, you're pretty much seen as nothing. You just are. It just is what it is. And so someone like Bo Nix, who had an awesome year, who played really, really, really high-level football, and quite frankly, never looked overwhelmed or looked like that the moment was getting to him or that the NFL itself was getting to him. Not saying that he succeeded and was great in every single moment, but it was never too much for him. To have him be so overlooked, especially when people were predicting that the Denver Broncos were going to win like 4 games, 5 games, they gave him no chance at all. And yet they win, and they get to the playoffs and have this awesome year where Bo Nix plays legitimately awesome, but it's barely discussed. Now, Jaden Daniels, absolutely. Anyone who watches my channel knows that I am a huge Jaden Daniels fan. I think he's awesome. I think he is special and will continue to be special. So this is not supposed to be any conversation of like Jaden Daniels versus Bo Nix and who will be better. Like, I'm not interested in that conversation at all. I'm not even, that doesn't even remotely interest me. But it's so interesting because Jaden Daniels, and understandably so, played awesome in, multiple playoff games, got to the NFC Championship game, etc., etc. But there is a real possibility, especially how the seeding could have worked, that Jaden Daniels could have had his first playoff game at the Link versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And we saw how that game went. We saw how that game went. Pure domination by the Philadelphia Eagles. Pure domination. And in a way, that's what happened to Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos. They went up against the Buffalo Bills, the AFC contender. They didn't get to go up against like their version of, which is what the Washington Commanders were able to go up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They didn't get to go up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Chargers, the Houston Texans. Like they didn't get that game where you're like, yeah, this is a truly winnable game. This game is like we can actually legitimately win this game and have some pretty highs. And Bo Nix was kind of leading that there into the first half, and then obviously the game got, broken pretty wide open, and obviously the Bills obviously ended up winning that game quite convincingly. But it just goes to show you how Bo Nix could have had the playoff experience in terms of public perception if things just landed a little differently. Because again, we saw what the Eagles did to the Commanders. So if they played in round 1, it's not hard to imagine that we would have seen, maybe not exactly that, but, something similar. The Eagles obviously were great and went on to win the Super Bowl, so they're obviously a great team. They obviously know what they're doing. The Bills ended up going to the AFC Championship game, were a drop pass away from tying the game or maybe even winning the game, and then they're going to the Super Bowl. That's Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. And there could have been a playoff path for the for the Broncos to play maybe the Steelers or the Chargers. And then now they're going to play the Chiefs. And then who legitimately knows? We saw the Eagles defense, the top defense in the NFL. We saw what they did to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Broncos had an awesome defense as well. And we saw that defense stifle Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. So who's to say that the Broncos couldn't have knocked them off? I'm not going to be... anyone who's confident that wouldn't have happened, you're just clearly a Kansas City Chiefs fan. I'm not saying I was predicting it. I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I'm not saying that I would say, oh my God, the Broncos would have definitely won that game. That's not the way I talk. But to act like it was not possible, no, of course it was. So it's just it's a fine line between greatness and being forgettable. And being like, oh yeah, Bo Nix did that too. Oh yeah, whatever, who cares? Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. And I think there should be so much motivation and excitement for the Broncos going into this offseason. And again, they're still in like a slightly twisted situation because they're still dealing with the aftermath of Russ and whatnot. So it's still going to take, some pretty strategic maneuvering and probably just enduring still some pain. Unfortunately, just is what it is. But it's been pretty fun this year because there's been a lot of storylines that a lot of people had to eat crow. Sam Darnold, despite what some people want to try to sell, had a massive amount of success with the Minnesota Vikings. Jaden Daniels is legitimately special and absolutely balled out with the Washington Commanders. Jalen Hurts is a Super Bowl MVP. The Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl and dominated, that unstoppable Kansas City Chiefs team. And Patrick Mahomes did not play great in that Super Bowl. And so you had to watch in real time a lot of people wrestle with this stuff. You never really watched people wrestle with Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos. There was never really this moment where people were like, you know what? I got to admit I was wrong. You did have people have to kind of force to say that, although, again, they try to backtrack because of the way how the season ended with Sam Darnold and the Vikings. But you did have people have to face that reality. You did have people have to face that reality, especially once Jalen Hurts was the Super Bowl MVP. And now going into every single playoff game, they doubted him and picked against the Eagles. You had people have to, reconcile with that and accept that. People had to appreciate, whoa, Jaden Daniels is way better than I thought. Because they kept saying, oh, he's a rookie. He can't beat the Bucs. Oh, he can't beat the Lions. And then the only time that people thought that they could win is when they were playing the Philadelphia Eagles because, the doubt of the Philadelphia Eagles supersedes pretty much anything else in the NFL of 24-25. And yet no one seemingly really reconciled with Bo Nix and Denver Broncos turning this team around. I mean, people did that with the Washington Commanders. Washington Commanders were nothing. They were going nowhere, and they were going nowhere fast. And they get new coaches, and they get Jaden Daniels, and the team immediately turns around. It is now seen as a legitimate contender and a threat moving forward, and people could not be any more excited for Jaden Daniels and what this team can accomplish. And yet, the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix had a similar season. Maybe not as intense, because obviously, again, the Commanders were able to get to the NFC Championship game, and Jaden Daniels had more highs, I'd say, more like highlight highs than Bo Nix. So I understand why there's going to be like more attention there. But to act like what Bo Nix did was just that, and the Denver Broncos was just like, yeah, whatever. It's not that. And it should get the credit that's deserved and that energy and that momentum going into the next season. So I'm fascinated to see what happens when we get closer to the fall, to this coming season, which is obviously, pretty much as far away as it can be. I'm curious when we get closer to when people are starting to have like more serious conversations of what they're expecting, what do they do, like how much belief is behind Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos. Like, I'm fascinated because it seems like so many people were wrong about this team and Bo. And it was kind of just like, kind of swept under the rug a bit. Kind of just like, yeah, no, pretty impressive what the Broncos were able to do. The Bills, the Chiefs, the Texans, C.J. Stroud, Justin Herbert. Look over there, the Los Angeles Rams. They're winning games now. They're in the playoffs. They just beat the Vikings. Look over here. And it's just, they refused. And I think a post like that where they leave off Bo Nix is kind of like the perfect example of that. Of this like, hey, look how amazing this thing that this rookie quarterback did. Isn't that amazing? Oh, there was actually another quarterback who did that too? Yeah, who cares? Okay. Sure. I guess. It just shows you. Listen, there's without a doubt some bias in media, without a shadow of a doubt, and sometimes it's all for many different reasons, which I'm just, don't have a strong desire to unpack in this video. And sometimes it's just people are just not good enough at what they do. Because it can be hard. There's a lot of teams, a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of things to process. But when you're talking about such an iconic brand like the Denver Broncos, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, honestly. So I'm hopeful next season there's going to be more attention on the Denver Broncos. I think you start to really get that attention, one, by winning a playoff game, arguably the biggest way to do that. But the second path to that would be to win the division. And the third path would be to make the playoffs and beat the Kansas City Chiefs specifically, because that's obviously your divisional team, but do so in a way that doesn't feel like it's fluky, doesn't feel like it was like, when they beat them the year before, when the Raiders beat them and stuff. Like it's like, no, we beat you because we're actually like a great team, or we're actually better than you. We might not win the division, but like, you have to fear us. This isn't just like, oh, well, of course, divisional games can be tough and close. No. It's because we're actually legitimately great. We're actually going in the right direction. We're getting better and better. And then people will be forced to reconcile and wrestle with, like, who is this team? What is Sean Payton and Bo Nix building with this Broncos team? What is the timeline for them to truly be like, uh-oh, Broncos are here? So, when we're so far away from like the actual season starting, I'm trying to think of like all the various things that will get me excited once we're there, and it's storylines like this that got me fired up. And I know going into this season is going to be a feeling of like, I know I'm going to have a tremendous amount of hype and energy behind Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos. And it's one of those things where I'm going to have a lot of angst because I'm going to talk a big game, and every game I'm going to feel a lot of pressure for them to succeed. So I can be like, see, this is what I was hoping, this is what I was expecting. And it's just like, anytime they don't, it's going to be like such a letdown. It'll be such like a, no, this is not the way it's supposed to be. So hopefully they answer the call. Hopefully they can, continue to just get better and better and better. I think again, their timeline is another 1, 2, 3 years. These things take time. It's not like I'm anticipating the Broncos to just magically be Super Bowl contenders, or I'm not even going to put a cap on them and say, listen, anything short of an AFC championship game this next season, I would be disappointed. I'm not doing that, considering the circumstances that they're in with this, with this team and salary cap and all of that type of stuff. But I look forward to seeing them elevate their quality of play, and watching Bo Nix elevate his quality of play, and what that actually looks like, not only during the game, but then how these games unfold. What's the game plan? How Sean Payton managed it? Some of these things are a little bit harder to actually really predict until we kind of watch them unfold, because it's not always clear what that next level is for a quarterback. And so I'm just excited to see it. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Bo Nix and Denver Broncos? Why do you think this team continues to be under discussed? I don't think there's been a single video about them in any of the major shows since the season has been over. So let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.